let's go ahead and begin our practice. And what I'd like to do today is invite everybody. I'm sitting in a computer chair, and what I'd like to model for everybody is I'm not sitting back, I'm sitting up. And so if you're sitting in a computer chair, I'd really like you to try to sit up and sit toward the edge of your seat. If you're sitting on a couch or some kind of reclining chair, and only do this is an invitation to practice this way. If your body needs to be a little bit more reclined and your body is asking for a practice that includes a little bit more rest, please give your body what it's asking for. Remember, the first foundation of mindfulness that I keep touching into this month is the body. And it's not just focusing on the breath of the body, it's focusing on what is the body telling you. For me, I have been gardening, and so I've been bent over and I've been stretching and doing things. and and I'd like to sit in a solid posture, a really grounded posture. And I'm feeling very inclined to sort of embody the tap roots of many of the weeds that I keep yanking out of the ground. Very much connected to the earth and the unseen realm, as well as sort of blooming and growing upward in the air element, ready to bloom, ready to ripen in my upper body. It's a bit of a sacred paradox that death is such a mystery where we don't know what's going to happen, and yet every single one of us will do that. We will all die someday. And so one of the things in the Buddhist practice is we look at death regularly, not because we have a propensity to be morbid or morose, although some people may, but it's more a way of using the experience of death and dying as a way to inform, give purpose and meaning, imbue life with enthusiasm and preciousness. It's also a reminder to be humble, because we cling to so many certainties or so many attempts to know things. I got to know this, I got to know what's going to happen. And yet we don't seem to give as much attention to how are we living, how are we taking our steps toward our inevitable death. At the Abbey, at Sravasti Abbey, they have a very common phrase. They like to say things like, we all know we're going to die, none of us know when or how. And so that brings to the moment, to this moment, a really beautiful opportunity to recognize how precious it is. For the month of May, friends, we are exploring boundaries. Boundaries as sacred altars of understanding. Boundaries as places of pause. Boundaries as enshrining walls, borders that are creating protective spaces. My space and your space. But these boundaries are not walls or borders that are so high we can't see one another. Although that may happen, and that may be necessary for certain people. For this practice today, I'd like you to keep your image of your boundary, Your sacred altar, low to the ground, maybe only shin high, something you can easily step over, but something wide enough that you can't step over without first pausing there. It's not something that you can just mindlessly encounter. Otherwise, you're going to trip, and you're going to trip and fall into somebody else's space. So this particular boundary is a place, a true place of pause. And your four walls, and you can have as many borders as you want. I'm playing with four because they match the four foundations of mindfulness: the body, our emotions, our thoughts, and our stories. And these four things, these four boundaries, these four places of pause are so fundamental to the human experience. Everyone can tap into what's going on in their body, what's going on with their mood, what's going on with their stories and thoughts. Everyone can do that. And when we can give ourselves enough space to explore those things for ourselves, we naturally and organically begin to create beautiful spaces. And the reason is because there's a natural unfolding that happens with deep discernment, and that is a softening, a kindness. It's hard to look deeply at something that you're hammering on. If you're hammering at something, you're just pounding away. You're probably not looking very closely at all. At least that's my experience. When I'm hammering something, I'm just getting a general look at it, and I'm pounding and pounding and pounding. It's only after I put the hammer down that I really see. We're putting the hammers down. We're putting the violence down. We're putting the aggression and the hostility down so that we can see what we're doing to our bodies, to our emotions, to our thoughts and stories. I'm really grateful to Susan for bringing our awareness to her friend who's dying. We've had several Sangha members who have experienced recent deaths: grandparents, parents, friends, pets. There's so many things in our lives that die, not just um, things with lives, things that breathe. Thoughts die. Patterns die. Relationships die. Ways of being that once served us but no longer go through a kind of death. And there's a lot of grief in letting them go. It's not easy. It's not a matter of just let it go. There's a process involved. At least there ought to be. And I think sometimes when we bypass that process, we don't actually heal. And that healing becomes a legacy that we pass on. It's certainly a legacy that we carry from our parents and grandparents and their parents and grandparents and our ancestors since beginningless time. With this practice of creating a protective space of beautiful altars surrounding us, we allow ourselves to really look deeply and see what's going on for us to heal. And we're not healing so that we can have a good death or a good life in the afterworld. That could be a motivation for you. My motivation for healing now is to enjoy my life and to have a more secure connection to the synchronicity of life, its magic and wonder, its beauty and its constant attention, always reminding me that I am well loved. I want to heal so that I never stop hearing that song. I never stop seeing the wonder of life. I never forget. What happens after my death, I don't know. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. I just want what I'm doing right now to ripen into something beautiful and helpful and meaningful. How are you treating your body today? If you're not treating your body well, is there a way that you can engage with that truth with a little less hostility and aggression and judgment? If your body is in a state of physical health other than what you want it to be, can you offer yourself a little bit more gentleness around where you are? For instance, with this cold, I don't have the energy that I want, and so I feel really overwhelmed. I live on a farm, and there's always a lot of work to do. I could work 12-hour days here on the farm. And so I feel at times a lot of pressure to get things done, and my body right now just won't be pushed. And I know if I do, I'm going to compromise my health even more. So instead of getting agitated or even aggravated, I'm moving very meticulously, slowly, mindfully, and I'm sprinkling all of my bodily engagement with a spirit of reverence. This is new for me. I've been a pusher for most of my life, push through. How are you treating your mood today? Yesterday, my mood was overwhelmed. Today, my mood is much softer. And I'm noticing a little bit of ambivalence arising, a little bit of like, meh, it'll be all right. How are you treating your thoughts today? Friends, life is always conspiring for our wellness. Life is always conspiring for goodness and surprise. So yesterday I had these thoughts of, Ugh, I gotta get out on Tawanda. Tawanda's my weed whacker. And I gotta get out and I've gotta weed whack all the edges of things before it gets out of hand. And there's just a lot to do. And then last night, around 8 o'clock, the mama fox living under our barn came out. And under the shelter of the tall grass, she brought her 4 new babies out to play. And had I cut down that grass and shaved everything down to the ground, her kits would have been more visible and she might not have felt as safe. And they might not have felt as safe. And so that landed in my mind as a story, as life saying, Julia, I got you. It's okay. You can put that down, darling, and enjoy these beautiful new lives. Mama Fox is bright red. Papa Fox is brown and black. Her kits, she has 3 bright red ones and 1 brown and black one. Magical. In the safety of your space, protected by the 4 foundations of mindfulness, connected by these sacred altars of understanding, look around you. Look at the people in your life. Can you notice their space? And can you allow them the freedom to move around in their own space, to make choices and decisions, to learn from mistakes and grow? Can you come to that altar of understanding, that border, and have a conversation with someone you love and see if there are ways to offer support and care? And knowing that sometimes the best support we can offer someone is space. Space to figure it out. Space to look deeply at themselves and have time to wonder. We don't always have to jump the wall, jump the border into one another's space and fix it all up the way we think it should be. That is a very tough habit to break. So let's, rather than break it, let's work with it slowly and just notice when the propensity, when the desire to jump the wall and jump into somebody else's space and get into their business arises for us. Look at the conditions. Get curious. Would you look at that? But they need my help and support. It might be true. And it's not the whole truth. Give someone space. We all need it, and we all do better when we have it. Space, my friends, as I mentioned yesterday, is another word for one of the 4 limitless qualities in Buddhism that we cultivate, which is equanimity. Another word is inclusivity. Another word is freedom. When we have space and equanimity, we create an environment that enables us to see the good and the bad, the light and the dark, the confidence and the self-doubt, all of it together unfolding as a whole human spiritual experience. As we take just a step toward the conclusion of this meditation, I'd like to encourage you today and maybe this weekend, as you're out and about, to allow a small wonder to discover you. A small wonder that grabs your attention. And may that small wonder be something that you place upon one of your borders, one of your altars of understanding, a placeholder, a reminder to practice, a reminder that your practice is something beautiful. One of my placeholders today are the many violas, the Johnny Jump Ups, that are all over one of my gardens called Nama's Garden. And I pause at them and I smile. May you pause at small wonders in your life. May you smile and know that at every turn and in every moment, you are so well loved.